I went in wearing the headset and nobody really seemed to notice or care, which is a good thing. And then I headed over to my email inbox to check things off and reply to a few emails. I spent some more time here just enjoying my coffee, browsing around, really trying out this headset, and eventually I headed out with my coffee. Walking around with this thing on, having maps or music or videos open as I walk, is a pretty crazy thing. I headed towards the closest subway station, but before hopping on, I did have to feed my cats for their first meal of the day.
Look, you can wear your $3,500 toy around as some sort of fashion statement. Well, that's not going to stop me from saying you look like an absolute moron and a mark for someone to just take it off your head. I mean, that's the only fair exchange.
Right, so the United States of America, 20 years ago, if you were a man and you dressed like a woman and walked on the streets, unless you were in more forward-thinking places like California, people would laugh at you. Now it's illegal to do that. Well, not technically, but you can get fired from your job, you know what I mean. So, I do think that America is the land of possibilities. Like, if people walked out with these ridiculous goggles on their heads, eventually it would be socially unacceptable to laugh at them because it's a corporation that's pushing it and it's just the way it goes. I remember when Google tried to do the same thing. It was called Google Glass, and people used to call them glass holes. The reason that I remember Google decided to stop production of these things is because people could actually record with their glasses, right? And that was considered to be like a privacy violation. I don't know why now it's acceptable. I guess like people have been used to getting recorded. Like surveillance has been normalized to the point where you're online, everything you do is probably monitored by an AI or something, and people demand more safety, they demand more censorship. So at this point, it's like you don't even have that much privacy. I mean, we're going to the area where privacy is almost non-existent, right? So like, so what if someone films you? Of course, the argument is indeed, if you're in a more, how do I say, understanding and compassionate place in the United States that realizes that criminals are pushed into a life of crime as being victims of society, and we as people have to be more tolerant towards criminals, right? So if you're in a place like Chicago, for instance, or Scat Francisco, then yeah, chances are someone can actually rip that off your head, that it's like a $3,500 headset, right? But if you're into a small town, people may not try that. What I do want to say, regarding the fashion statement, yeah, sure, you're going to laugh at one or two, but when this shit becomes cheap, if everyone starts using it, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go outside and you're going to laugh at everyone? Like, I mean, I know that you think we live in clown world, but just how funny things can get, yeah? The thing that I noticed, though, is that a lot of people from my generation are turning into boomers. Like, unironically, when I grew up, I remember my parents freaking out. It's like, oh my god, you need to go play outside, right? Like, there was the magic of playing outside. And I was like, you know what's outside, mom? Skin cancer. That's fucking outside. What is your obsession with me playing outside? Mother, you do not go outside. Like you go to the office and you come back home, right? And you sit in a car. You do not go outside. What is your obsession with me going out? Like, what is the magic of being outside? To be honest, I used to go outside. It's just like not as much. Like, they wanted me to go outside every fucking day, and it's like I don't get it. I want to stay at home. I want to watch TV. And then I started playing video game, much to the horror and dismay of the parents. And yet again, the horror and dismay intensified with the internet. It's like, oh, those aren't real friends. Do you guys remember that? Like, those of my generation probably remembers. It's like, the people on the internet aren't your real friends. And I'm like, well, I mean, I can pick up the phone and call them, like the real human beings. Like, I can actually go and travel and meet them, right? Just because I talk with them on the internet doesn't make it more or less different. But that was like the mentality of my parents back then. And it was like the boomer mentality of resisting change, right? Like resisting the advancement of technology, which, okay, like it had some good parts, it had some bad parts. Usually like technology comes with trade-offs. But my point is this is no different, right? Like people making a big deal out of this and acting like, oh, this is going to destroy the youth, or this is going to destroy the older. No, I think that it may not even catch on to be honest. I mean, sure, it's a novelty right now. That there are some individuals that are willing to pay $3,500 for it. And I noticed you can do certain things like give a woman big tits, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be made illegal. Women can make their boyfriend look like Brad Pitt, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be perfectly fine. So we're definitely going to have new laws and regulations for these things, especially from the European Union. Like, you need to take into account the European Union is incapable of creating technology like this. They're incapable of innovating. But they're the first one to regulate, right? Like, take into account that Germany has, like, 6 chairs for fusion and 134 for gender studies, right? So, like, they're training their population to regulate stuff, right? Like, they're training people to be moral busybodies rather than inventors. They leave the invention for someone else, basically. Like, smarter people can invent. Germany, and by extension the European Union, is going to regulate. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of regulations and rules for these things. Basically, like, make sure you have like a little red glowing button when you're recording, or make a sound like a click when you're taking a picture. And by the way, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. However, with that out of the way, I don't know like the long-term implications of this. First of all, it can either go the way that Pokemon Go used to, where everyone is doing it for like a couple of months and then everyone drops it because it has become boring and it doesn't catch on. But assuming it does catch on and literally like everyone starts walking with these things and everyone does it, I don't know about the health implications or like the drawback effects when someone has to go without them, right? Not to mention, like, again, we live in the age of safety, right? So, like, private companies work hand in hand with the government for the safety of us all, which means that, yeah, I mean, the private company can definitely make sure that they see what you see in order to catch any hate speech in the act, in order to catch any problematic things in the act. I mean, this happened with Tesla, by the way. Like, if you're not aware, Tesla basically said that their cameras are only there in order to train the AI so that self-driving cars can drive better, and they guarantee complete anonymous to the person using the car. However, just because you don't put your name there doesn't mean that the camera doesn't see what garage you're pulling into. And there was a scandal because some of the workers at Tesla managed to have access to these recordings, and they were laughing at various car crashes and various accidents. So like, how much do you trust these companies? How much do you trust Apple with your personal security? And, the difference between how much people actually trust them versus how safe they are two different things. Let me know what you guys think, though. How is the future going to be like with these things? Do you think they're going to catch on? And if yes, like, what do you think the health implications long-term are? And I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.